Hello.
Testing.
Okay, good. They work.
So you can see us. Here we are. Welcome to Rush Hour Concerts, everyone. Good evening. I'm Anthony Deborye, and I'm joined here by Ken Olsen and John MacFarlane, and our pianist Victor Asunvion, who we are letting rest downstairs for a few minutes. If you've ever been to a piano quartet concert before, you know that the pianist has a lot of notes to play, so we're just going to let Victor decompress for a little bit. But anyway, we'd like to just share with you some reflections on the program before performing this evening. And I thought we would start. We all have history with this series, so I thought we would start just by introducing ourselves individually and share a few reflections on our time here over the years. Why don't you start, Mr. MacFarlane, since you're on the right side?
Hello, my name is John MacFarlane. I'm a violinist, and I play with the Lyric Opera of Chicago. And I am thrilled to be able to come back to Rush Hour Concerts and actually have an audience. This is a very special thing for us to be back. I started playing with Rush Hour years ago. It was about maybe 5 years ago, and I conducted a concert here, and then came and did a couple more of those, and also played violin a few times here. And it's a wonderful festival. We really love the chance to come and play for you, and to play for a free audience. It's always a thrill for us.
Hi everyone, I'm Ken Olsen. I'm sure I recognize a lot of faces even from here I can see. And I'm the assistant principal cellist in the Chicago Symphony. I've been playing at Rush Hour since as long as I can remember being in Chicago. I was friends with Debbie Sobel, the wonderful, amazing human who started this whole thing. And it's been, 15 years probably that I've been playing. So it's great to be back after a year away from live audiences, and it's starting to feel like normal again, so very happy to be here to play for you today.
And as I mentioned, I'm Tony Deborye. I'm the violist of the Avalon String Quartet and professor at Northern Illinois University out in DeKalb. And I was actually artistic director for this series for about 5 years. Worked very closely with these guys and with many other musicians in town. And it's a wonderful feeling to be back in this space and to see a lot of familiar faces, even from up here on stage. It's just wonderful to reconnect with folks and start to get this going again. Johnny, do you want to mention just a little bit about Victor, since you work with him most closely of the three of us?
So Victor Asunvion, our pianist, phenomenal pianist who I've known for many years. We've played all sorts of pieces together. He's come out and played with us at the Rembrandt Chamber Players a number of times. He runs his own foundation, of which in Evanston, the Phil Am Foundation, Music Foundation, and I've performed with him there as well. He's a remarkable and very sensitive pianist. You will really enjoy his playing, a true chamber musician.
So we thought we would talk a little bit about the two pieces on the program, and we'll actually begin the conversation with the Brahms piece, which is the second work on the program, and one of the towering works of the piano quartet repertoire. I would say Brahms wrote 3 piano quartets. This is the third. It's in the very Beethovenian key of C minor, and the Beethoven influence asserts itself in different ways throughout the piece. Why don't we just kind of take it movement by movement? It's a 4-movement piece, starting with the tempestuous movement in C minor at the beginning of the piece. John, you want to?
Yeah, so the very beginning of this piano quartet, the second piece on our program, begins, as Tony mentioned, begins with just a very large chord of the piano, which sounds like it could be by Beethoven, and that's what we're going to. And then from there, it goes to a place that's not this Beethovenian sound, but this very Brahmsian sound, wherein it's these constant sighing gestures again and again, where he's pleading many times. As you can see in your program notes, this has been known as the Werther piano quartet, regarding this unrequited love, which began, is the speculation regarding his relationship with the Schumanns. So just a little background to it, when Brahms was very young, about 19, 20 years old, he had met and impressed the violinist Joseph Joachim, who at that point had become rather famous himself. He was maybe 20 years old, 21, and he wrote a letter of introduction for Brahms to give to the Schumanns so that he could meet them. And so he shows up, you can imagine, he just shows up at the Schumann's home with this letter, not with Joachim himself, but with a letter written by him saying, I'm a great guy and you should get to know me. So he hands this to Clara, who's there on her own, with, I think the Schumanns had 7 children, 5 or 7 children. And Robert was gone at the time, and then he came home and met Brahms, and they were both just extremely impressed with this young composer. And then, apparently, Brahms fell madly in love with Clara. And then Robert found his way into lost his mind and ended up in a asylum, and not apparently in anything to do with Brahms. And this platonic love that Brahms had for Clara, as far as we know, is continued to be unrequited throughout his life. So this work, we believe, is known to be a piece very much about this kind of feeling. And you'll hear this throughout, where there are these gestures again and again that sound like pleading and sound like trying to get someone to fall in love with you.
And then we move on to the second movement, turn of the page, just a terse, brief, muscular, stormy scherzo movement with a fascinating, slower, quieter section that the Hungarian influence that Brahms was so taken by, and that has some connection to Joseph Joachim also. That Hungarian sound works its way into this movement in a way that I think is kind of unavoidable in most of Brahms's pieces. One way or another, he just keeps finding some way to get pulled back into Hungarian influence in his music. Kenny, anything you want to say about the third movement? It's kind of a big cello deal.
The third movement opens with a big, hopefully beautiful cello solo. We'll see what happens in a little bit.
Gorgeous.
And then it kind of, I think this, if you're talking about the love part of it, I think this movement is definitely the heart of that. And, John and I will play together. And he comes in after a big sort of opening solo with just cello and piano. The violin joins in and intertwines all of the melodies and harmonies. And it comes back at the end, the same theme. And the viola joins the cello this time right off from the beginning. And it's a beautiful movement. It's just a beautiful movement. So I will try my best, I promise.
And then the fourth movement of the piece is marked Allegro comodo, which linguistically implies sort of a relaxed, unhurried feeling. And in terms of the speed of the motion, that's probably true in this movement, but there's also kind of a restless undercurrent to it, just kind of a churning, slow boil going on from the very beginning that takes a while to work its way up, but by the time it reaches its climactic arrival, it has turned back into a Beethoven influence. You'll hear a familiar rhythm throughout portions of the last movement that goes da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And you might be vaguely reminded of a Beethoven symphony that you once heard at a children's concert or something, because it's in there. It keeps coming back again and again, and it's amazing. I think so many of Brahms's influences just, he couldn't help himself. He couldn't avoid the shadow of Beethoven. He couldn't avoid the pull and his love of Hungarian music, and so much of that is just organically ingrained into this piece.
And this movement, also in not a particularly Beethoven fashion, but very much in the realm of Brahms, is that it ends everything sort of falls apart. This happens all the time in Brahms, and this is no exception. So the piece, we get to a gigantic climax in the fourth movement, and then things sort of calm down, and it seems that things sort of unravel, and then we have 2 big chords to end it.
So why don't we also mention just a little bit about the Carolyn Shaw piece that opens the program, Thousandth Orange. This is great fun for me because this is my first time playing a Carolyn Shaw work. I remember very clearly when she burst onto the scene, almost unheard of. At a very young age, she won the Pulitzer Prize, the youngest composer ever to win the Pulitzer Prize, and just kind of took the music world by storm. So I'm very pleased to finally get to play a piece of her chamber music. And there's a great connection here because she wrote this quartet the piece started coming to her while she was working on a Brahms piano quartet. So there's a very clear connection, obviously, in the instrumentation, but also, this is what was going through her mind when she conceived of this piece, which is written in what I think anyone would consider a minimalist style, which is to say, taking small, very simple musical materials in a very repetitive fashion, altering them almost imperceptibly in slow, gradual ways until they take a complete departure from the original material and then oftentimes, and in the case of this piece, find their way back to the opening material from the beginning of the piece. So this is where the idea of 1,000 Oranges comes into play, the little 4-chord progression that Victor will play at the very beginning of the piece and will play numerous times before the strings come in a completely unrelated way. You can consider each of these little 4-chord progressions as the orange. And as if you are a still life painter examining the orange one time and then coming back to it on a different day and trying again, and then coming back to it at a different time of day and trying again with it, and then coming back when the orange is in a different state of ripeness and taking another look at it. So just examining the same simple, mundane thing over and over again until interesting and unexpected things are revealed about that orange. So that's kind of the background, the explanation, the concept behind this piece. And what I am always attuned to when I'm looking at chamber music for piano, combinations of piano and strings, is the integration or separation between the piano and the string voices. And in this piece, there's a very clear separation between the three of us as string players and the solo piano as its own entity. It starts out with the piano as kind of the bedrock and the strings sort of freely, in a free fantasy around what the piano is doing. And then, again, in a kind of imperceptible way, at some point we cross paths and the strings take over as sort of the bedrock rhythm of the group, and the piano has much more involved and more departed material from the opening. So that's just something that I always listen for when I'm hearing a work for piano and strings for the first time. Do you want to add anything about this piece?
I also have not played a piece by Ms. Shaw. But I've heard a number of her works, and this, as well as the others I've heard, which is somewhat unusual among newer composers and young composers, is that she writes not against the instruments. It is apparent what we need to do, and there are parts where you will hear where it sounds as though we're having trouble keeping together, but we're not. It is written that way. We're supposed to be not together, and it just sort of falls apart in a very interesting way. She has, for instance, when we start playing these pizzicati, and then one of them, all of a sudden, I think you might be the first one that does it's called a Bartok pits, which is where you pits the string so hard that the string hits against the fingerboard, and it makes this very odd sound. It's the kind of thing you don't want to do on accident, and it sort of comes out of nowhere, and then we all get a chance to do it, and which is very nice of her to write it that way, because then the whole audience doesn't think, oh, the poor cellist accidentally snapped his string. We all get an opportunity to do this, as well as when the piece starts to sort of fall apart rhythmically. I think I might be the first one that messes up, and then kindly she passes that same error, as it were, around to everyone. So it makes it's very kindly written, if that sort of makes sense in terms of modern music.
But you should hear some of the mnemonic devices we came up with to try to make sense of the staggered, untogether rhythms and how we could be sure that they were coming in the right place.
Yeah, so one that Tony came up with, I don't think he attended the University of Pennsylvania, but it turns out that that's 10 beats long, and that's a rather hard, counting a 5 against a 4 against a 3 does become rather complicated in your head. And so the mnemonic device here is
University of Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania. So you can repeat those syllables against a broad rhythm of 2, and it all lines up in the end, one way or another.
You really saved me with that one.
I have nothing to add except I want to thank you guys all for coming to the concert today, and we hope that you enjoy the performance. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Mark Riggleman, Executive Director of the International Music Foundation, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this Rush Hour concert. We're grateful for support from the Claire as our exclusive media sponsor, and for additional support from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Illinois Arts Council, and of course our partnership with St. James Cathedral. Our performers this evening are certainly well known to Rush Hour audiences and beyond. Violinist John MacFarlane, violist Tony Deborye, cellist Ken Olsen, and pianist Victor Asunvion. So at this time, would you please join me in welcoming the artists to the stage?
idea that whole thing.